Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the ice. Brought to you by Doak Spoke Fuels, Case Financial Group, the Pilot Mound Hockey Academy, as well as Toby Hockey. Wayne Kozier with Wayne's World. Wayne, a little warmer on the prairies. It almost feels like spring, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, it's a long winter ahead of us yet, but spring means that playoff hockey is coming around the corner, so that's an exciting time of year.
It is. You look at it, and some leagues will even begin wrapping up at the end of February because a lot of them they haven't had any delays. Playoffs are going to start in March for some squads, and then the WHL will start doing their playoffs late March, early April. So it's going to get good.
Exciting time of year.
Absolutely. So let's get into conversation number one, because we've talked not so much about it per se, but it's always a little bit nervous perhaps for a player and a parent to be approached by an advisor, approached by an individual that's looking to help get the best for their son or daughter. What are some of those discussions that you've noticed or you've had, those introductory conversations with a potential new client as a parent and a player that's looking to see their career go to the next step?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is kind of a business that I think has been scarred by, some characters in the past that maybe haven't represented the occupation very well. And, it's some of the things that we always have to deal with, I guess. But, number one, I guess, there's no accreditation to be an advisor, really. So you really have to do your homework on what is the background of the individual that you're talking to, what is their background and track record in hockey. And, for certain, you'd have to get a formal contract. I know I've had examples shared with me by parents that are now with us that didn't even do a formal contract. So basically, it was a handshake and exchange of some cash and stuff like that. So you definitely want to ask for a formal contract review before you commit to anything, and understand who's actually going to be your advisor. So even if you're dealing with somebody up front, I mean, at the end of the day, it could be a territory rep or a channel partner, but who's going to ultimately advise your family and your player, understand who that's going to be and what their background and understanding and knowledge is. So, there's some key questions, just like anything. And sometimes I use the analogy of, if you invest your money, and a lot of times people invest their money, look at who is the manager of the mutual fund, right? Because usually they've had a good track record of turning out good return on investments and stuff. And the same with hockey advisors, right? Is, ultimately make a lot of your decision based on who you're going to be dealing with and what is their track record. And do you feel comfortable with them? Is there a connection there and things like that?
One thing I got to ask you, Wayne, before we move on is what level, I mean, that contract should spell out what services the advisor or that advisory group is going to be using for the player. It's not when you consider that it's part of your career and it's going to be a decent chunk of your life here coming up. How important is it to continue and to stay with that advisor that they're looking to set you up, not just for the initial year or two, but just looking after you for years to come?
Well, I would suggest that, the contract should be fairly detailed and really spell out all the details of what you're going to deliver as an advisor to the family and stuff. And again, there is a number of good firms out there that do a good job of that, but there is also on the other side a number of firms that really don't have a lot of detail in there. And like I say, it's virtually a handshake or just above a handshake. Very basic language on here's what the fee is. It's this is the term, and then a lot of verbal commitments about as far as, well, if your kid get to the higher levels and explore commitments and or get them to the WHL and stuff like that. And I would just say, I mean, trust but verify has always been a big clause in my business world and in hockey. That, you got to have somebody you can trust, but also verify it by having it put in writing and stuff. And there's a reason that players have contracts when they play, even in junior hockey, but certainly as you go into pro, it's spelled out all the details. And I really think advisors should do the same. And so that you know what to expect and what you're getting for your investment that you're investing in that advisor to help you out.
I've dealt with advisors most of my adult life, helping myself and my brother get through university and college with that matter. I always frowned upon the discussion part where the advisor would say, "Oh, I got a guy that'll help you with this. And I got a guy that'll help you nutrition. I got a guy that'll get you your stuff. And I got a guy I don't want to hear the guy." There's millions of guys out there. How important is it for an advisor to be showing his cards to a player and a parent group, saying the names of the people that he's working with?
Yeah, you raise a good point because I've heard that lots of times, and more so what I've heard is, I've talked to a bunch of teams about you and stuff. Well, what teams, right? List those teams and stuff, and as far as all the other guys that you talk to that can help, it's part of the business. I mean, some clients are looking for help on, they need power skating help, they need mental focus help. There's all kinds of lines, and a good advisor would have access to good people to do that. You don't want them leading with those types of things, but those are kind of ancillary services that would benefit your player and stuff. And certainly, within our advisor service, there's different things that players and families need from us. May not be our core offering, but again, we're all about helping the player and the family achieve their goals. And if it helps us introducing them into some of these specialists, and a good one would be goalies, right? I think goalies is one of the toughest positions in hockey, not only to play, but it's the toughest position to advance in. So, goalies, I really believe, need specialized training and help. Most coaches of hockey teams, frankly, aren't goalies. More often than not, they're actually forwards. Second would be defensemen. And so you just look at that and, what do you think their expertise is going to be? What is their knowledge? And, regretfully, again, goalies need the most help, and it's the most important position. But at lower levels, it's the most ignored position. And even at the junior levels, they don't get the proper training and support.
Well, great people are great people because they surround themselves with great people. And if you are a player that's considering that next move into your hockey and student athlete career, trailblazerhockeyadvisors.com, Wayne Kozier is the guy you should probably give a listen to and give a quick call and say, hey, I'd like to know a little bit more. Speaking of which, let's move on to some of those decisions that might come up in future days for some of these players. There's a conversation that is definitely never gets old. Some key differences between a junior route in Canada versus going the NCAA route in the States, and potentially looking at the other leagues in the United States too. Some of the key differences that a player may have to consider when making a decision.
I mean, again, we go back. Certainly, our methodology is that no one size fits all type thing. So, you know, every family and player that we deal with, we try to dive deep into the player's background as well as the family background, and understand really what's all there for information that we can use to properly advise the family. The player's skills and abilities is certainly critical and stuff, but I know the question that we get a lot is, what's the right route to go, right? Is it WHL or the NCAA? I can't just say off the top of my head. It's something that we have to do a lot of analysis with the family and with the player, because again, it's not one size fits all. And some of the key characteristics that I mean, number one is personal choice. I mean, some people just really want to go NCAA. They've got a founded belief that that's the right route to go, and they want to go that way. So that's great. We can help them go that way. There may be families that are deeply rooted and they want to go Western Hockey League. That's the route to go. Great. We can help them go that way. But a lot of people maybe just don't know. And I mean, the key part from our perspective is you got to start earlier versus later. Because once you get later in the process, the options are more limited and stuff. So we certainly try to get players engaged sooner versus later, and understand where are they in their maturity level, right? Their skills and abilities, their physical maturity. Sometimes it's better to go NCAA because the runway is a little bit longer if you're kind of a late mature, both skill wise, physical, all that stuff type thing. And then the other thing that we always talk about is, what is the tangible opportunity? And certainly there may be players that get great opportunities presented to them at 15 to sign with the WHL team that are drafted high. WHL players can sign right now as a 15-year-old and get 3 years of education up front, guaranteed. NCAA is ultimately a verbal commitment until you sign your national letter of intent, which is typically upwards of 5 years to give you a verbal commitment. And again, that's good. But again, I kind of use the analogy of the bird in the hand versus two in the tree. It's kind of, you only got what you got. It's a lot of stuff is predicated on what happens in the future. And when you're talking about, a 16-year-old child in the case of the NCAA, 14, 15-year-old child in case of the WHL, man, a lot of things can change over those critical development years and stuff. So just a lot of things that need to be considered, and there's no one easy answer. I wish there was, and if there was an easy answer, there wouldn't be the need for advisors. Parents and players can make it themselves, but long story short, it's a very complicated process that you have to put a lot of thought into and analyze the individual circumstances.
Navigating that water certainly hasn't been made easy. It always becomes with more stipulation and decisions to be had. My big decision has always been the academic side of things, life after hockey. And
Mm-hmm.
some students, athletes will say, I can put that off. I can go the junior route, knowing that I'm getting that 3 years of opportunity afterwards as well. Some students, athletes feel that they can do that complementary while they play Division
Mm-hmm.
One, Division Three hockey and go to school at the same time. And they enjoy that part of the hockey culture. Hockey culture for junior hockey is considerably different than hockey culture in the NCAA. Number of games, travel, the bus trips, what takes precedent, priority, all those matter. So it certainly is good conversations to have with your family and the people that are helping you advise and correct decisions. All right, Wayne, here we get to the fun part of it, the quick 90-second spots. Hot take number one. This is something we have not chatted about. What has gone on with the BCHL? We haven't heard lots of news from them. How are they operating? What's going on? How are the players, the teams? What have you heard?
I mean, ultimately, with the regular season, there's been no difference. You wouldn't know they're not part of the Canadian Junior Hockey League and stuff like that. So I don't think we're going to see a difference until playoffs start, and that's when things will suddenly become apparent that it's different. And as it stands right now, the BCHL has no national championship to play for. So all the other CJHL members do have that championship that they'll be competing for. It is in Estevan, Saskatchewan this year. So, that's going to be different when that comes about. But for right now, I mean, nobody would know any different. If you're not a knowledgeable hockey fan, you wouldn't know that something has changed. Going forward, I think you could maybe see recruiting perspective. Is that going to change? If players want to go there, do players get drawn to competing for a national championship and getting on that stage, playing in front of TV audience and scouts and stuff like that? And so, it's unknown a bit at this time. And certainly I don't think that I've seen the BCHL hasn't communicated a plan, what their long-term plan is, but those are some of the things that I would identify.
That playing for the national championship, if it's important to you as a player, or if it means very little to your decision making for years later, I think BC still gets a very good chunk of the best elite players to go to that province to play junior hockey. I know their goal is to obviously compete with Western Hockey League franchises and organizations for that talent. Will they get there right away? Probably not. Will they get there eventually? I don't know. But the bottom line is they have a direct pipeline that moves south of the border a lot faster than other divisions. That's number one. Number two, going back to our conversation about the NCAA, this massive cluster, whatever you want to call it, of the NCAA portal, it's not as congested as other sports like football and baseball, but hockey players, years of eligibility, when are we going to see sort of a normal movement back into what the portal was used for and those franchise transfers for players?
My opinion is it's not going to be anytime soon. It's going to take a few years for this to shake out. And I mean, with COVID, all players got a fifth year of eligibility, so they kind of clogged the system. Players together, systems, and not enough teams for them to go play with. So that's certainly one of the issues. And then, of course, the potential to go onto the transfer portal and have the one lifetime exemption to not have to redshirt on your transfer and stuff created further issues and stuff. So, long story short, I guess a lot of teams now are looking at the transfer portal as a key recruiting tool. So instead of committing to an 01 player this year or even an 02 to come straight in, they're holding off and waiting to see what they can maybe grab off the transfer portal. And by that, it's somebody that's at, a particular school and wants to move to a different school. So wants to go into, what we'll call free agency and go on that portal. So that's really changed how recruitment happens, how the flow of players happens. And, that's certainly something we're spending a lot of time educating our families on.
It certainly is different, the attitude towards a transfer portal for a collegiate hockey player. And I talked about this with my brother real quick, and he said, for a team to look at a player that's a second or a third year collegiate player that's in a transfer portal, a proven college player that knows what the culture is, versus an 18-year-old that's fresh out of high school, traveling, unknown to the geography, just beginning to say, I'm going to start my collegiate life. Where do you take the chances on that player? And it's such a big question for the teams to look at versus the player. And unfortunately, the player that's getting lost in the hay is basically the younger one because they're not as proven. I think it'll take about 5 or 6 years for this to finally get through, because that's what we've done with this extra year of eligibility. And it's going to take a bit of time to get through all that mess.
Absolutely. It's definitely made it more complex. And ultimately, I think why families need an advisor to help them wade through that swamp that's now been created.
Wayne Kozier, our time is up. I really want to thank you for joining us tonight. Do enjoy the warm weather. Get out there and maybe move some snow around the house.
Snow is all melting and stuff like that, so I don't even have to move it. So let the good times roll.
Right on. Wayne Kozier here on Wayne's World. Our part 1 is now complete. We're going to come back with part 2. Rod Collins from Pilot Mound Hockey Academy. He's got some big news announced last week. And let's get that right, Theo, chronologically speaking, with a new team joining the academy. Stay with us here on the ice.
Welcome to Pilot Mound Hockey Academy, your world-class academic and hockey training facility created to maximize each student's athletic and academic potential. Blackjack Stewart Arena, home of the Buffalo, is inside the 46,000 square foot complex, as well as a curling rink and other facilities. The students have a unique combination of successful, well-rounded education at Pilot Mound Collegiate Institute and the professional hockey training in an encouraging community. The years of experience of on-ice coaching propel our students to the next level, both mentally and physically, in a professional environment.
Joining me now on the ice, Rod Collins from Pilot Mound Hockey Academy. Rod, good evening. Thanks for taking some time to join me. How you doing?
Hey, Theo. Good, thank you.
Fabulous. So a busy weekend, not just for the teams, but getting some great news and a huge announcement for the academy. Give us some details on what was announced this past weekend.
Well, it was our 3-year plan with Hockey Canada, adding the U15 and the U18 in the following year. And it was approved by Hockey Manitoba for an elite prep, U18 prep program. And we just have to wait now on the league, the Canadian Sports School League, to confirm that for us. And I think they have to wait until all the applications are in from other expansion projects in other provinces. But we're very confident we're going to be playing in the Canadian Sports School League prep division at the U18.
This is a male program, correct, or a female program?
Yeah, this is the male. This will give us the U15 male, U17, and U18 male. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. So what's the timeline do we have, Rod, considering, we're just finishing up this season? When do we expect to hear the news that the CSSHL will allow the U18 elite program to join in the fall?
Well, like I said, there were applications from programs in other provinces, and once those are all in, we expect by the end of this month for sure. But it's pretty much a given. Obviously, we got to recruit a good team, but it's pretty much a given. We're always in good standing with the Canadian Sports Hockey League. So we'll be playing at the highest level in Western Canada here.
What does that do, Rod, for the early traditional years of this academy, bolstering a 4th team and just building the program into a student athlete hub in southern Manitoba?
Well, that was our goal from day one, obviously. We're spending a lot of money here right now building our new complex with the new dorms and the dining and the kitchen, the lounge, and it's going to be a super building. And it'll be a block away from the arena and 4 blocks from the school, so that's all part of the ongoing process. But we're proud of what we've done so far over the 6 years or 7 years now in developing kids, and that's the main thing, getting them into junior hockey and on the boys' side, and collegiate hockey on the girls' side. So we're very proud of what we do, and we take pride in developing not only good players but good citizens.
Rod, you mentioned the dorm. How is that project coming? The infrastructure wise, when do we expect it to be ready to house all the teams?
Well, we're hoping by September 1st, and we're pushing, although the weather hasn't cooperated like it should, but we're pushing as hard as we can to get everything in, the kitchen, lounge, dining area built, and the 2 sets of dorms on the back by September 1st. And we're quite confident we can do that. So we'll maintain our 2 portable dorms, which are, within walking distance of the main complex. We'll continue with those for another year or 2 while we build the 2 other dorms, giving us full 4 new dorms.
In terms of housing a new team, the U18 program, what does it look like in changes for the collegiate? And will that have an implication on any new students coming into and attending school?
As far to the school program, we're 11th and 12th graders to fulfill that team, and actually having kids who can go right through our program and graduate. I think that's a big thing in this league, is trying to retain kids to graduate, because it's about 80 to 90% of the graduates that stay in these programs all go to junior A hockey. So that's a huge number. And that last year development is so important. I think for most kids, some get stars in their eyes and want to go play junior in their senior year. But that, I think it deters from their school somewhat, being an exceptional player. And the junior that they want to play, what I'm saying is they're ready for junior A hockey. And that's what we'll do. It's a benefit to our school to add another 20 students, obviously. And the other benefit is for our American kids that are a year behind because of their birth date. This will fulfill their junior years or their senior year as well.
I never thought of that, Rod, giving that opportunity for international players to fulfill that. That's great news. What is it about that lifestyle and that senior year that is so important for the maturity, instead of going off to a junior A program a year early, but knowing that there is a place to play at still while you're attending high school with a program that you're used to, and knowing if you've come up through the ranks through the U15s and U17s?
Well, I think it's all about development, of course, and maturity, and playing time. You could go to junior and not be playing a lot. This way, you're still going to be on the ice and play 60 plus games every day for 9 months. And I think that's important. Also, college-bound kids can really focus on their senior year of school, which is a big part of getting scholarships, obviously, is the academic portion. So I think it all plays in the right direction for a senior to stay and graduate.
Speaking of staying and graduating as a senior, what does that do for your recruitment process from both the male and female side, knowing that you now have a program set up for kids to start young, build up, mature, practice, progress, get that playing time, have all of the amenities available to you, the focus on athletics and academics? What does that do from a recruiting process for Pilot Mound Hockey Academy?
Well, that's what an academy is, and that's what a sports school is, and that's what it's designed to be from Hockey Canada to focus on the education as much as the athletics. And it goes hand in hand. Obviously, not all these kids are going to play pro, but it'd be great to see them all well educated. And I can name hundreds of them over the years that are in that position now. Some have gone pro, and I still stay in touch with a lot of them that are doing well in as business or lawyers or whatever type of thing. So that's an important part. And then they'll look back on. We want them to look back on these years in Pilot Mound and say, the cooks cared, the bus drivers cared, the coaches cared, the teachers cared, and it was one of the best experiences of their life. And that's important to us.
Absolutely. It's certainly some of the best years of a hockey career for young men and women. Rod, what have you been able to do in the last little while, recruiting players, looking for the talent? How are we going to get better talent for the upcoming years for the Pilot Mound Hockey Academy?
Well, we're focusing. I'm focusing on trying to get. I have a range of scouts right from Russia to the U.S., wherever, that are focusing on high-end players for us. And they don't necessarily have to be the highest end player. We want to develop them, of course, but this is a very high-level league we're playing in. And we're struggling a little bit with our teams right now, but it's an ongoing process. So I'm trying to reach out to kids that are really motivated, really want to get somewhere, probably college bound for the most part. And so I'm reaching out to them, and I've started the process. I've got a long list of kids going right now that I got several calls coming this week from parents, especially out of the U.S., that are very interested in this program. And to be honest, I'm not a very good salesman. I have a passion for coaching kids and developing kids, but I may not say all the right things that parents want to hear, but I want the kid that wants to be here and develop himself.
And not a better place when you consider the fact that it's a great program with, I don't know how many years of experience behind the bench, but also just the pedigree of building a program from the ground up has certainly been a case of fortitude and strength in the small town community of Pilot Mound. Rod Collins, thanks so much for joining me tonight. I really do appreciate it. I know you're probably in the lunch hall with the kids, right?
Well, I got out of there. They're noisy as heck, so I came over to the other. I came over to the other side. I just wanted to mention also quickly on the recruiting side that we do have our camps on our website now. All our camps listed, and people can register on there, or they can contact me personally, email or phone call, and we look forward to talking with them.
Right. I did see those on the website, pilotmoundhockeyacademy.com, correct?
Yep.
And you can check out the teams that are currently there, and as well, we look forward to seeing the addition of the new U18 program, which I think is fantastic news. I think we've been, like you said, waiting for quite a while for that. There it is, pilotmoundhockeyacademy.com. Do check them out. Let them know if you're interested in coming to a camp. It's a great idea, not just for getting your name out there, but just getting the experience of it all, because it is a very different camp that you see in Pilot Mound. So, Rod, I want to again thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it, and I'll let you get to your rest of your evening's events.
Thanks, Theo.
A pleasure. This has been On the Ice with Rod Collins and Wayne Kozier. I'd like to thank our sponsors, as always, Case Financial Group, Toby Hockey, Pilot Mound Hockey Academy, as well as Dokes Brook Fuse. Tonight's guests, really do appreciate your time. Thanks so much again. We'll see you on Thursday for another episode of On the Ice. Be good at it, bringing more goodness to the greatness. And of course, take care of your neighbors, take care of yourselves, and make sure you also have a wonderful rest of the evening. Bye-bye for now. And yeah,